AM 1480 WLEA.
Our guest today is Albany reporter Kyle Hughes of NYS.com.
Next on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
Kyle Hughes, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Brian.
Kyle, the legislative session ended last week. Senator O'Mara got his anti-heroin legislation passed. It was signed into law by Governor Andrew Cuomo on Monday. Senator O'Mara seemed mostly pleased, except he indicated he believed that the state assembly watered down what he originally wanted as far as treating the heroin dealers goes. O'Mara said he didn't think it was tough enough, conviction and sentence-wise there legislatively on the drug dealers. On the medical marijuana legislation, it turns out that the governor got his medical marijuana legislation through the way he wanted it. It'll be allowed for a select limited amount of diseases in more than one form of medical marijuana. I think oil is one of the forms. Patients won't be able to smoke it, though. Kyle Hughes, what can you tell us about the medical marijuana passage for New York State?
Well, the governor's goal, I guess, was to get a bill through, but not one that would somehow encourage people call it recreational, but it's really people getting high off of medical marijuana, which is what you see in California and some other states, that under the guise of having some sort of health ailment, people are just smoking marijuana and getting high. That's what he did not want, and he had the backing of the state police on that as well. And so he put in this bill that has very specific illnesses that it would apply to, with the proviso that the health commissioner will be able to add other illnesses to the list of diseases that would be eligible for getting prescriptions for marijuana. Now, this would not be in leaf form, so it couldn't be smoked or ingested, making pot brownies or whatever. This would be through pills or oils or other ways to take the drug.
According to the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, one thing that the governor did not get passed was his 10-point women's equality agenda. Now, that's because of Democrats apparently not wanting to drop the abortion part of the legislation. Wondering, Kyle, was that the Senate Democrats, the Assembly Democrats, the governor, or a lobbyist? Who was it that would not cave and abandon or compromise on the abortion legislation for the women's equality agenda?
Well, I believe there were 10 bills in the quote-unquote women's equality agenda. 9 of those passed the state Senate, which is governed by this majority coalition of some Democrats and Republicans together. The one bill that didn't pass was the bill to essentially decriminalize and deregulate abortion in New York. In the Assembly, they've only passed it as a package, like an omnibus, I guess you'd call it, where all 10 bills went either up or down. You couldn't just do one. And there was a big push towards the end to break it apart, particularly to let a bill about human trafficking get passed. But the Assembly Democrats are divided on this. There is a powerful but probably small group of people in the Assembly that are totally uncompromising on the issue of abortion. They feel that if you're going to pass any of these other parts of this women's equality agenda, it's got to include this decriminalization, deregulation, abortion bill.
Campaign finance reform did not go through. That seems to be more of a Democrat issue. The Democrats want to put in campaign finance reform. Republican leaders and their voters are a lot less eager for that, nowhere near what the Democrats are. Any idea as to why that is, Kyle?
Well, a public campaign finance system is in place in New York City, and that's obviously where most of the Democrats in the state are, so they're comfortable with it, and they're would like to see it expanded statewide.
So when we say campaign finance reform, we mean taxpayer-funded campaigns.
Right. That was the big part of it, really, and that would be money that would be raised. There's been different ways proposed as to how it would be raised, but it would be money that would be raised and given to candidates for public office, which is the system in New York City. And there's as well as anybody that does, their income taxes, the federal, you can have a checkoff to give money to that fund as well. A lot of people don't do it. I think the majority of people don't do it, but it's an option. And it also should be mentioned that they do have it in New York City, but routinely the candidates down there for mayor do not participate in the system because they want to be able to raise as much money as they can.
Interesting. Governor Andrew Cuomo did a phone call with reporters. That was right after the session ended. He was asked by a reporter for his response to Rob Astorino's criticisms of the state's financial condition.
You know, your opponent's been out there talking about how New York's in dead last and winning or losing and all, as you put it, rhetoric. Do you feel like that these last two ratings kind of put that talk to rest, or at least bite a little bit into what they're saying?
Oh, look, it's a political year, and you're going to hear a lot of political chatter from every angle, right? But at the same time, you have facts. Unemployment rate going down is a fact. The largest one-year drop in upstate unemployment in history is a fact. Highest number of private sector jobs in history is a fact. Over 400,000 new jobs is a fact. 4 budgets on time is a fact. Lowest spending, additional spending in over 50 years is a fact. Moody's rating up is a fact. Fitch credit rating up is a fact. So these are facts. And Moody's and Fitch, Pat, yes, they have looked at the other facts, and they're affirming that the other facts say the state of New York financially is stronger than it has ever been.
Kyle Hughes, maybe you can explain this. How is it that Moody's and Fitch credit ratings are so great for New York State, and at the same time there are all these negative reports about the state coming in from all across the country?
Well, I think there's two different financial issues that are being discussed. Moody's and Fitch's focuses on, I guess, the state's financial practices in terms of how does it raise taxes, how does it prepare its budgets, or is it using recurring funds, is it using one-shots? The criticisms that you hear from Astorino and from many, many other people is addresses the job creation and economic growth in New York, which is something different than how the state budget is managed. Cuomo has gotten the credit rating raised on the state budget because it has been a little bit more predictable and, according to the raters, a little bit more responsible in how the money is raised and spent. But I don't think that Moody's or Fitch's is passing judgment on, for example, how high taxes are in New York or the business climate. These are the things that Astorino is focusing on.
One place where you can often hear Astorino is the Fred Dicker Show on Talk1300.com. They have a radio station, Talk 1300, and we hear it in this part of the state on Talk1300.com. On that show, Fred Dicker said this.
People of New York know that New York's in big trouble. Anybody who lives in upstate New York knows New York's in big trouble. And as was it Mark Twain once said, figures lie and liars figure. Why shouldn't the governor just be candid about what the numbers really show instead of hyping it with $100+ million in TV ads to boost his own standing rather than to be candid with the people of New York?
Kyle Hughes, Dicker, once an ally of Governor Andrew Cuomo. He defended Governor Cuomo when Carl Palladino made some comments about Cuomo's personal life. Now, you couldn't see the two of them in a room together, Cuomo and Dicker. Wondering, does the pressure that Dicker puts on Governor Cuomo on the Fred Dicker Show, do you think that has any effect on the way that Cuomo makes decisions?
I don't think so. I mean, it has had an effect that Cuomo doesn't go on the Fred Dicker Show anymore. But, Fred is a longtime reporter, been around the Capitol for decades, and he's very knowledgeable, very opinionated, too, as well. He writes a column, and he's not pleased with the way Cuomo has conducted himself, particularly as a result of the SAFE Act.
I think it was the SAFE Act where he really turned against Cuomo.
And Cuomo had picked him to write his biography. And that all fell by the wayside as a result of the SAFE Act, and since then Fred's critique, I guess, of the governor has gotten very sharp, and you can almost hear it daily when you listen to it, as you said on that. The station is in Albany, but they do broadcast his program on the internet. And you can go actually listen to the podcast at any time, and it's a pretty provocative show.
One thing that the governor holds up is that the state got 4 on-time budgets done in a row after years and years of the budget being late.
It's self-imposed, and we're serious about it. And then we did it the second year, and they said, you'll never do it again. And we did it the third year, and they said, you'll never do it again. And they did it the fourth. We did it the fourth year, and they said, you'll never do it again. So I think it's a number of factors that they're looking at, which also are now showing positive results.
Kyle Hughes, why is it that Governor Cuomo is getting the budgets done faster than others?
Well, he has brought a lot of discipline, and he's a tough guy, and he's got the legislators to basically get in line for him on the big issues. He's also held by the fact that the Senate is governed by this majority coalition, which is some Republicans and some Democrats. Usually the Senate would be the House maybe that would hold up the budget because he's a Democratic governor, and the Republicans might want something different. But he's managed to tame that beast. Beyond that, I think that maybe this had just played out at string. I mean, it was a laughingstock how these budgets would be late and not. When September 11th happened, they didn't do the budget until after September 11th because they had, at that point, hadn't finished the work on it. I mean, it got to be very ridiculous, and I think it reflected very poorly on the legislature. And one other thing that I think helps is that the state has had problems in terms of the revenues, not a lot of money coming in, although money is starting to come back in now. But since the financial meltdown of 2008, one of the rules of thumb in Albany is that the more money there is on the table, the harder it is to settle the deal because people want a piece of the money. Well, there hasn't been that much money in the sense of money that they could split up and spend on their pet projects. So Cuomo has benefited from that as well.
We're talking with Albany reporter Kyle Hughes of NYSNYS.com. Our conversation with Kyle will continue in just a moment. Back on the Newsmaker Show, I'm Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Dorn. We're on the line today with Albany reporter Kyle Hughes. Kyle, I have a Common Core question for you. The state legislature was able to delay the teacher evaluation for 2 years, but not able to delay the Common Core standards. Now, our area state lawmakers supported delaying the Common Core standards. They fought for that unsuccessfully. Now, CapitalNewYork.com says State Education Commissioner John King told lawmakers before the session ended that if the Common Core tests were pulled, that would jeopardize federal funding. Wondering, Kyle, is that what led to the legislature's compromise where they were able to work out delaying the evaluations for teachers but not delaying the Common Core standards? Did King's statement have anything to do with that kind of compromise that was reached on Common Core?
Well, I think it probably did because I think it's about $300 million was at risk if the state did not move forward on Common Core. But I think a larger reason is that the governor, the SUNY Chancellor Zimfer, the State Education Commissioner, the Board of Regents, these are the people who are in charge of education as opposed to NYSUT, the teachers union. They are, I believe, committed to Common Core and to raising standards. The teachers union, NYSUT, is, understandably concerned that their members maybe are not being fairly treated when it comes to their annual performance reviews, which is a new thing that Cuomo put in, where teachers have to be evaluated, and felt that when you're rolling out this new program that it would not perhaps fairly reflect on the jobs that certain teachers are doing. So as a result, they have put this off for a couple of years, and it affects thousands of teachers across the state that otherwise might have had to take, remedial courses or remedial actions or even possibly lose their jobs.
The New York Post came out in an editorial against the state legislature for getting rid of the teacher evaluation part of Common Core. The editorial board for the Post wrote that the decision to drop the teacher evaluation project protects bad teachers. Now, the New York Times reported somewhat contradictory statements that low-performing teachers could still be removed if they were deemed ineffective after test scores were excluded. Wondering, Kyle, you're in Albany where all this is worked out. Can you clarify this? Is the Post right, the Times right, or maybe both?
Well, the teacher evaluations is a tough issue for the union because they want to protect their members. They don't want people to lose their jobs. And the state's interest is in making sure that you only have qualified teachers. And that's the parents' interest. That's really everybody's interest, to have qualified teachers in there. And so they've come to a middle ground, I guess, by delaying it for 2 years. Another issue that's hanging out there as a result of a court decision in California is to potentially alter tenure of teachers in New York State. This could have a massive impact. Right now, teachers, after a couple of years, are essentially given lifetime job protection in New York, and it's very difficult, time-consuming, expensive if they are in trouble and the districts want to get rid of them. It's possible to do it, but it's very difficult. And there's already talk in New York of somehow replacing teacher tenure with another system that would perhaps make it easier to weed out the bad teachers, which are a minority. But anybody that has kids in schools, the last thing you want is a bad teacher in the classroom with your child.
Now, CapitalNewYork.com reported that a bill got stuck in the Assembly's Rule Committee. That bill, had it been passed, would have allowed home health aid workers to do duties that nurses usually do. Now, a couple of weeks ago, there was a huge amount of home health care workers and people on crutches and people in wheelchairs, and there's video of that on the Times Union website, and they were outside the Assembly protesting. Kyle, your thoughts on that situation?
Well, again, it's as so many things in Albany and with state government, I think it does come down to union issues and concerns of, in this case, the Nurses Association, that people who are not nurses would be doing the work of registered nurses, and that was probably enough to stop the bill. The people in the wheelchairs and the people who are disabled, I think, were there because they want to have a little bit more independence, and they want to be able to have a little bit more say in who's caring for them, as opposed to having to always need nursing care. They feel that, for example, these home health care workers would be able to carry out some of the duties and the care that's provided by nurses. So this was one of the bills that fell by the wayside, but I'm sure that it's going to be back because the people in the wheelchairs, the disabled people, are very adamant, and they show up and they got into the Assembly and caused a protest. So they got into the governor's office, not into his office, but on the second floor, which these are pretty much lockdown areas, and they're not going to give up. And the Nurses Association union is going to have to contend with those protesters.
Something that Governor Andrew Cuomo has been pushing for years is the idea of consolidations of local governments. Now, local government dissolution is a story that's just breaking on your website. Can you tell us about that?
Well, the governor has made this kind of an issue, one of his second-tier issues, that there's a lot of governmental entities in New York, and that's the reason that taxes are so high. Well, it's true there's a lot of governmental entities, but if you talk to anybody in local government, they say the reason that the costs are so high are because of state mandates for things that need to be done by local governments. It's not because there's a water district or there is a sewer district. It's particularly pension and health care of public employees has gotten unsustainable, I think the critics would say, and the local government officials are looking for changes, but in all of the things that Cuomo has done with property taxes and freezes and so forth and the 2% cap, they have not really addressed some of these issues that the local government officials are talking about when it comes to mandates on government in New York.
Kyle Hughes of NYS.com, longtime Albany reporter. I want to thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Brian.
I'm Brian O'Neill. Stay with us. NBC is next on AM 1480 WLEA Hornet, 1480 WLEA Hornet, 1480 WLEA.